Well, hello there. It's David. Welcome or welcome back to Cross Fitness, helping men and women get in the best spiritual shape of their lives, one workout at a time. Not that being in physical shape isn't a bad thing. I'm at 8,500 steps. I got another 1,500 to go for my 10,000 minimum per weekday. And I swam for an hour at Gold's Gym today, too. And so, yeah, so I encourage you to get moving, and anything you do is better than nothing that you've done. So a quick thought in this video that I'm calling, I get by with a little help from my friends. Okay, a little flashback back to the Beatles, who brought us that tune and that wonderful phrase, I get by with a little help from my friends. Yeah, I'm going to try with a little help from my friends. Hey, you know what? That's good. Have friends is fantastic. I was thinking about that. And I thought, in my life, there's about 5 types of friends. The first one are seasonal friends. These are friends from junior high. They're from high school. They're friends. Maybe you went to a church. Now you've changed churches. And these seasonal friends are people that you knew in that region, that vicinity, that church, that organization, that period of time. And that's totally legit, man. No harm, no foul. If you were really close to people at church and then you move to another church and you don't hear from them anymore. Hey, don't let that offend you. Let that let that be water off a duck's back. That's not a problem. Why? Because they're seasonal friends. It's fine. And teachers you had or whatever, you just know them, you think highly of them, you respect them, but they're in and out of your life because it's just a season. Second kind of friend I was thinking about are hobby friends. Okay, these are members of the ball team, the bowling team. Um, you know, you were on you play pickleball with them. You know, you see them at the gym, and these are just revolving around the affinity that you have for a hobby or something. Okay, and they can't grow into more than that. But typically it's about the hobby, and not as much. They're more of an acquaintance than the third kind of friend that I've noticed, which is a legacy friend. A legacy friend is someone who, like, I just moved from Tennessee to California, newly married. And so I have a bunch of friends in Tennessee, 45 years worth of friends. And so many of them ended up on what I call the legacy list, the people I just don't want to lose touch with. But it is up to me to be intentional, proactive, to reach out to them. And so I have a system and a method in which to do that. The fourth kinds of friends I want to share with you are what I call the inner circle. Jesus had an inner circle. He had the 12, but he had Peter, James, and John, right? Well, these are your go-to, guys, if you're a gentleman, your gals, if you're a lady. These are your inner circle. These are people, there's nothing to prove, there's nothing to hide, bad breath, messy up tear, they don't care. They know your story, they don't care. And they're just going to be with you. They're your inner circle. And I hope you have a bunch of those, maybe 3, 4, 5 of those. That would be a rich, rich life if you had an inner circle. And these are the ones you want to stay in contact with on purpose, okay? A lot of relationships go nowhere, but these inner circle go somewhere on purpose, okay? And then the fifth and final one I'm thinking of is this is your best friend. These are your best friends, okay? If you're a married person, your best friend ought to be your spouse, don't you think? That isn't always the case, and it's sad when it's not, but it sure should be. Your spouse ought to be your best friend. You ought to give more attention and effort to live with your spouse with understanding and serve and just enjoy them to the full. If you're not married, then maybe if you're a lady, it's a friend, a female, a girlfriend that you just feel so comfortable with, and you've walked with them through the highs and the lows. If you're a guy, it's your buddy. I mean, this is your pal, right? This is your guy that you can call him at 3 a.m. He'll come get you, that kind of guy. And I hope if you're a Christian, a Christ follower, that Jesus is your best friend of all. He is the friend that sticks closer than a brother. I'm reminded on the subject of I get by with a little help from my friends, and I sure got some good ones. I'm reminded of the proverb that says, to have friends, one must show himself friendly. Okay, back to the intentionality, okay, and the proactive part that you and I play in maintaining and expanding quality friendships, key friendships, strategic friendships. So whether they're for a season, whether they revolve around a hobby, whether they're a legacy relationship that you don't want to let go of, an inner circle friend, or your best friend. You know what? Identify them, and then you do your part. I need to do my part to maintain those relationships. So I hope that inspire you a little bit to send the text, make a call, leave a VM, send an email, do a Marco Polo, do a FaceTime. How are the ways you like to communicate? Why don't you do that? Reach out, thank them for their friendship. If you run across a podcast, it's really cool. You think it would they would benefit them. Hey, just share it. Just hit the share button and share the podcast, share the video. Don't wear them out, but if you say, this is why I thought of you when I saw this or listened to this. So just a thought. There you go. For now, I'm Dave, your virtual mentor, reminding you that I'm always for you, never against you. Hey, take care. Be friendly.